Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another edition of the program. We're live, we're national. It is Tuesday, right? Is today Tuesday? Is it? Thank you. Okay. Today, making sure I know the date. I never know the date, especially in the 9 o'clock hour. Anyway, and our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. And, of course, the media continues, right? Those in the hate Trump left-wing media are out there making the signal thing into a huge, huge scandal. I don't think it's that huge of a scandal, believe it or not, but I understand. I understand their desire to make this the end of the road for El Trompito, nearly 60 some odd days into his presidency. I don't think so. I don't think that's the way it's going to go down. But definitely something that we're going to talk about, right? We're going to get to the bottom of that in a little bit. I also want to get into a little bit about what other headlines that are going on. You've got tons and tons of investment. Right now, you've got nearly $3 trillion of investment that's come in since Trump took office. Some are estimating this is equal to about 10% of our gross domestic product. This is a very good thing, right? This is a very, very good thing. What else do we have? The activist judge, Boasberg, is now allowing the Tren de Aragua gang members to challenge the Alien Enemies Act deportations. So I guess, they're bent over and chained in El Salvador, and he's saying, "Well, listen, maybe we got to fly these guys back in so that they can, have a new defense." Listen, I get it. If he's standing up for liberty, standing up for due process, then hey, go for it, Judge. Do I think it's a little ill-placed, all of this altruism? I do, but who am I to judge, right? We continue. What else do we got here? There was another big story I wanted to cover here. Not so exciting. Not so exciting for me. What is this? John. Okay, I see that. All right, that's fine. All right, so I want to get into a little audio because there's a couple of things that I wanted to play. There's a great clip that I want to play for you on Trump's popularity. Of all places, it's from CNN. CNN, Harry Enton. And when you hear it, you're really going to appreciate it, I think, because he effectively makes the point that trying to compare Trump to other presidents is fine, but he does so much better when you compare him to himself. And quite frankly, that's oftentimes what we do in real life, right? In real life, I think we typically compare ourselves to our own performance. You know how we did when we did this particular task. So when he put the numbers together with respect to how Trump performs against himself, very eye-opening. You don't have that ready, right? And it was very, very eye-opening. So we're going to get to that. I also want to get into some conversation on COVID, right? Is that today? Yes, today's the COVID day. Because 5 years ago today, there was tons of discussion on COVID. Why? Because the governor, then governor, son of Mario Cuomo, his name is Andrew Cuomo, he signed an executive order that, in effect, forced medical facilities, at the time nursing homes, to take in COVID-positive patients. And just to give you a little sneak peek, and I'll repeat some of this in a minute or a little bit later, but at the time, 5 years ago, I was doing a 10 to noon show in New York, And I had a weekend show in New York. And I also had, a weekend show in Philly at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And I was a producer on the great one, Mark Levin's show. And I remember being in the studio in my capacity as Mr. Call Screener, and the phone rang, and a very, very nice woman called in. And she said, "Hi, my name is Dr. Elaine Heely. I am the executive director of a nursing home." And we had just finished talking. Mark had just finished mentioning that nursing home on the air. And I'm not sure if Mark mentioned this on the radio today or not. I'm mentioning it. I did not have a chance to hear his show tonight. But she called in, and she spoke to me. And she said, "Look, I'm a doctor, and you guys were just telling a story about this nursing home." And she said, "I saw this letter that came from my professional organization, the organization that manages nursing home administrators. And they said, look, you got to follow the governor's directive, which is coming down, to put COVID-positive patients in with your population." And she took umbrage to this. She took exception to it. She said, "No, absolutely not. This is going to, if they get infected, this could spread like wildfire and kill a very vulnerable population." Well, those of you who are from New York and listening from New York will remember that one of the hottest spots in COVID, right when it started, was Washington State, followed by a bunch of places in Westchester County, New York. And this was one of those places, because this is where they started pushing this stuff. And she, in effect, blew the whistle. And Mark brought her on the radio, conducted a really good interview with her, and she blew the lid off of this. And then from there were lots of courageous people out there. At the time, Vickie Paladino, who's now New York City Councilwoman Vickie Paladino, she was very active as an activist and doing her thing, right? Getting out there, making sure everybody knew what was going on with these horrible procedures. And my buddy Curtis Sliwa, who's been on the program a number of times, he was out there trying to sound the alarm on how bad of a decision it was for Cuomo to do this. And as a result, thousands and thousands of senior citizens, elderly grandmas, abuelitas and abuelitos, they died. They passed away. Very, very unfortunate. All because of this inept policy. And from this emerged an entire movement, a movement of people that were just fighting back. So I want to spend a little time looking back at COVID, looking back at so much of what's going on, and some of that this evening. Also want to talk about this same Cuomo running for governor of the city of mayor of the city of New York, a former governor who resigned in disgrace after allegations of sexual impropriety. And now it's like, oh, hey, welcome back. I'm back. Yeah, forget what I did with my executive orders and how that affected the lives of your elderly. You couldn't even sit there and hold their hand while they died. You had to maybe say goodbye on an iPad through FaceTime, some sort of video call on a tablet. This is the same guy that is now going to run for mayor. I think it's disgraceful. I really do. And I didn't even know he lived in the city. I know he's from Queens originally, but I thought he lived up in Albany. I didn't know he'd relocated back into the city. But I guess that doesn't matter when you're a Democrat and you have some name recognition and your father was governor and you were governor and he was a cabinet member to Clinton. He's got some clout and I guess he can live wherever he wants and run for mayor wherever he wants. But my hope is that common sense will prevail. And that won't happen. Anyway, straight ahead, we're going to have a discussion on that, as well as something we talked about with Chairman Whatley the other day from the RNC on the big victory that the RNC and the New York Republicans won on pushing back against unconstitutional voting. Imagine that. A big win on voting coming out of New York. God bless America. Anyway, folks, we're coming right back. It's Rich Valdez. Today is Tuesday, the 25th of March, and we shall return.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez live with you until midnight, 1 a.m. in some areas, working the late shift with you. And when I hear about Governor Cuomo running for mayor of the city of New York, the guy who signed the executive order, or should I crassly say the death warrants for so many senior citizens across the state of New York, I can't help but think this man was a disaster and a failure as governor, and he's going to be a disaster and a failure as mayor. But yet, he's out there unabashedly doing this. And listen to this real quick clip of his campaign commercial. Check this out.
I am not saying this is going to be easy. It won't be easy. But I know we can turn the city around. And I believe I can help. And that is why I announced my candidacy today for mayor of New York City. I am a lifelong New Yorker, and I love New York. And I want New York to not only survive, but for New York to thrive, for my children and for yours.
That's Governor Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo, former governor, running for mayor of the city of New York. He can't live without his political fix, and now he wants to get it at the expense of New Yorkers in the city. I want to get reaction to this from someone that knows exactly what's going on. She keeps her ear to the ground. She represents the 19th District in Northeast Queens, Whitestone, New York. Councilwoman Vickie Paladino, welcome back.
Hey, Rich. Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And, I remember months ago hearing rumors, Cuomo's thinking of running. And I thought, come on, he's just saying that to get people to write about him. But there's no way he actually puts his name on a ballot and tries to become the mayor after he is the Grim Reaper for grandma. But lo and behold, here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Boy, oh boy, that was some announcement. That was some promo he did for himself. But let's go back. Okay, it's very easy. It's not that long ago. And let's reminisce, shall we, about how we woke up one morning, and as I wrote one day, Cuomo crowned himself king. And make no mistake, that's his ego speaking, because he does not apologize, not one bit, for how he conducted himself during our COVID crisis. You played a few clips before I got on, and I have to tell you, it flooded back all the reasons why Cuomo would be an absolute disaster. We know what he did. He killed not only people's grandparents and senior citizens. Oh, no, Rich. He killed the city of New York. He took the heartbeat. He killed small business, Rich. He killed us all. He kept us on lockdown. And all for us to find out, 4 years later, that this was all BS, that who needed a mask? It didn't do anything anyway. I never wore one. And now we find out that the vaccine, what good is that? Okay, but that was all mandatory, 6 feet apart. Keep Home Depot open, and let's close the neighborhood hardware store. Let's not have events of any kind, celebrations. Families should have Christmas outside, Thanksgiving outside. Remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
Not long ago.
And that's what we can thank him for. And it amazes me. And I guess, my politics are different than his. My look is different. I remember that era. And, you were famous for having a Christmas party during COVID, and there was a famous conga line that came out of your Christmas party, came out in the newspapers. I thought they were going to try and lock you up for doing something like that. It was just a crazy time, and it's so sad. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it was. It was actually, my Christmas party, and I had it. I got death threats. Let me be very clear. We made arrangements for that Christmas party the day before Thanksgiving. This was before he pulled that garbage that he pulled that December 15th, anything, restaurants, everything again, locked down for the holidays. If you remember, it was just horrible. My party was on December the 9th. He did that on December 15th. These people waited with this clip that they had of my party until the week of Christmas. Let me tell you what the week of Christmas meant to my family in December of 2020. Death threats that you could not believe. They want to see Satan's blood come out of my eyeballs. This is and that was the week of Christmas. Okay, and then they waited to put out another clip the following week, which was the week of New Year. So my holidays, I had to have police protection. This is what, the radical left, we keep talking. And he said in one of those things that you played prior, clips, he talked about and he bragged about how he took control of a situation. Make no mistake, he didn't take control of the situation. He took care and took control of people's lives like a dictator. We cannot allow that anymore. So what's he going to do as mayor, Rich?
He's going to break everything.
And he claims that this is not a radical left policy. Also, another clip you played about the police officers and defunding the police officers. Well, you know what? The city council defunded the police. The city council did that. And as mayor of the city of New York, I don't think he's going to have many friends in the city council should he survive the primary. Let's remember, there's a primary between Eric Adams. He's not dead yet, okay? There's Eric Adams, there is Andrew Cuomo, and then there is that lunatic, Mondavi. How do you say his name? Zoran Mondavi, something like that.
I keep hearing about this guy, but I don't know anything about him. I don't think he's a very serious candidate.
He raised tons of money, Rich. Tons and tons of money. And you want to know who's behind him? All these people that he's their dream candidate.
Is it AOC and her crew?
Oh, yes, absolutely. This is the guy who's got the fist waving, fight them in the streets. That's their candidate. That's his attitude. He is the biggest anti-Semite out there, unabashedly, the anti-Semite candidate. So we got Curtis Sliwa on our
Sounds like a winner to me.
Yeah. Now here we go. Wouldn't you love to see Curtis in the ring with Cuomo?
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love to see him take on any one of them. I would love to see him take on any one of them because I think Curtis, he's got what it takes to bring it home. And honestly, let them kill each other. If Cuomo wants to run and cinch the Democrat nomination, and if Mayor Adams wants to run as an independent, I think they're all but handing it over to Curtis Sliwa.
I agree. And this is a huge opening for Curtis. Huge opening. Nobody should be fooled. I don't want to hear any of that nonsense that he's like a cartoon character or any of the mean, vicious things that people say. Make no mistake. When it comes to the knowledge of New York City, when it comes to what he knows, these people can't even compare to.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Vickie Paladino, Councilwoman from the city of New York. And for everybody listening across the country that thinks there's no conservatives in New York, that they ended with Hannity or Giuliani or Trump, guess what? Paladino's here. Valdez is here. We're coming right back. We're going to talk about AOC trying to take out Schumer. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're just getting started. I'm Rich Valdez.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And you guys know I'm a native New Yorker living out in Jersey now, in exile. And a couple of years back, I was marching in the Puerto Rican parade with my buddy Curtis Sliwa, who's running for mayor. I saw my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, all out crazy. And guess what? I went over to say hello to her, and she literally ran across the street. She ran away from me. She does not like to answer any tough questions, and I wasn't trying to even ask tough questions. I was trying to say hello on a day that I thought we shared in mutual admiration for celebration of our cultural heritage. But needless to say, AOC All Out Crazy has now got her sights set on Senator Chuck Schumer. She wants to become a senator, and she's got her communist sympathizing grandpa, Bernie Sanders, out there on the media run promoting her. But he doesn't like to share the spotlight, because when he's doing a one-on-one and he wants to talk about what he wants to talk about, he will walk right off the set with Jonathan Karl from ABC News, because he says, no. I'm not talking about nonsense. I'm not talking about inside the Beltway. I'm not talking about AOC. Listen to this.
A whole lot of good people. Alexandra is extraordinary. I am so impressed by her work in Congress, and she inspires young people all over the country.
Would you like to see her joining the Senate?
Right now, we have, as I said, just a whole lot of people in the Congress. Okay, Jonathan, thanks.
Wait, I got one more. This is important.
Well, I asked you.
Okay.
You want to do nonsense, do nonsense.
No.
I don't want to talk about inside the Beltway stuff. I got 32,000 people.
I was just asking you about AOC because she was out there with you.
Yeah, fine, but I don't want to talk about this.
I don't want to talk about this. It seems to me that maybe he doesn't want to support his communist sympathizing granddaughter. I don't know, but we're going to find out from Councilwoman Vickie Paladino. Councilwoman Vickie Paladino is a conservative, Trump-supporting, America First Republican from New York City. She's a sitting councilwoman, won by a huge margin, and I'm proud to have her on the show. Councilwoman Vickie Paladino, welcome back.
Thank you, Rich. Well, you made me smile from ear to ear. Is there anything sweeter than hearing the arrogance of this progressive left that we've got? You called him Grandpa Bernie. My God. What a riot. I crack up. I mean, you made me smile. And the fact that she ran away from you, no big surprise. They run away from it all the time. They're big, they're big shots, or so they think, but they don't have anything to back them up. They're as shallow as could be.
Yeah, it's true. But here's the thing, though. I was doing an interview the other day, and they asked me with incredulity, right? They were like, you don't really think AOC can win in New York? And I said, bro, AOC's been winning in New York since 2018. So let's not get ahead of ourselves here, right? That's a reality that's really going on. And Chuck Schumer is getting older and older. And the progressive left may be losing a little bit of steam, I would say, nationwide. But I feel like in Astoria, Queens, they're probably as alive and well as they've ever been, right? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Make no mistake, she has managed. I remember way back when she ran against Crowley for Congress for this seat. Now, Crowley took her for granted. He was an older guy. She was a young one coming up, and he refused to do any debates with her. He refused, he put his nose up to her. You can't do that. You got to go toe to toe. Now, Crowley was close to being Speaker of the House at that time.
He was in leadership.
And we watched this young bartender, who plans to be from like a meager background where she's not. She comes from a fairly well-to-do middle-class background, but she was a bartender. Who cares? Bottom line is this. You got to go toe-to-toe with these people. You got to let them know exactly who you are, what you stand for, and now she's going after Chucky. Well, you know what? Like you said, I agree with you 100%. This girl's got every chance in hell of winning this Senate seat. Don't underestimate her. She has over 2 million followers on Twitter. This younger generation, they live off of social media. She makes no sense when she speaks, but she's nice to look at. And she, again, is that fist-waving, radical, progressive left. The youth love it. The people who are dying love it. And the party itself has taken such a left-hand turn. That's why people like them are going to come out and vote for her in droves. But here's the thing. We have 62 counties in the state of New York, right? So we have 57 of them I believe it's 57 of them are red. But then again, New York City determines anything that happens throughout our state. It depends on our governor. Our governor's race is coming up. But she does most definitely have a very good chance of taking this from Chuck Schumer. And Chuck Schumer, look, he's old. He's had it. This young group want this young blood. Let's see what happens. Chuck won't stand a chance against her. I'd love to see a Republican come and run against AOC. That's what I want to see. I want to see a real. Yeah.
I feel like that what you're saying is exactly it, right? We have to see when the people are killing each other. That's when you have to run, right? If Adams and Cuomo are going to kill each other, Curtis has to run as hard as he can. If AOC and Schumer are killing each other, we've got to find the best Republican that will look like a better option to the folks in Albany and Buffalo. Let's do it. I would love to run.
No, that's something, boy. Just the thought of her having this much control rubs me the wrong way in such a way. I'm in a city council seat, whereas you watch them plow over you. There's 51 council seats. The Republicans only have five or six. Now, we have a chance this election cycle to pick up maybe 2 or 3 more, which would be great strides. However, we are fighting an uphill battle here in the city of New York, an uphill battle. So we not only need the Republican Party, I would like to see, and if you read, Rich, an op-ed I just came out tonight about the GOP infrastructure. We need to build the GOP infrastructure back up in New York, and we need the feds to back us up. Don't leave us out to dry. We are very much in play now, more than we have ever been, ever. So, like I said, I want to see that happen. I would love to see a great candidate go up against her, someone who is fearless and someone who will take her down if need be. It's time to stand up, folks. This is it. We've had it. We've had enough. We saw what Trump did here. He made great strides, and it might not have been according to the Democrats or whoever you want to listen to, but just the same, 11 points here, 8 points there in different boroughs. My borough, I think he increased it by 11% or 11 points. Let me tell you something. We are ready, willing, and able to take this up. Now, the trick is to find the right candidate who wants to put their life out on the line. And if we don't have infrastructure behind us to help us get to these races and win these races, they will all be for nothing. And once again, we will remain a one-party city and a one-party state. We can no longer afford to be that one-party city and that one-party state. I ask the feds not to give up on us. Throw some money here and watch us bloom. We will not disappoint. We will not disappoint.
Councilwoman Vickie Paladino, just like I think a day or two ago, we had RNC Chairman Michael Whatley on the program, and there's a lot of people in D.C. listening right now. So let them all know where they can read your op-ed and how people all across the country right now that are listening, how they're able to donate to your campaign.
Oh, thanks, Rich. That's sweet. You could donate to my campaign. It's Vickie, Vickie, for FOR, NYC.com. Anything would be appreciated, of course. And to what was your other question you wanted me to say?
How does everybody in the leadership at the RNC at the federal level, how do they read this op-ed to learn what you're all about?
Okay, yes. It's coming out. It's out now online, New York Post online. And, if you live here in the city, you'll see it. But I went online, and I got it online. They told me it was going to be published. I went over the moon, because this is exactly the shot in the arm that people need to read. It's honest, it's factual, and just read it. Don't give up on us. I beg you, don't give up on us. We saw Trump do it, and we could do this if we have infrastructure in place and money to back us up. We need the federal government to help us take some seats here, serious seats in New York. And we'll do it. We'll do it.
Vickie Paladino, again, give everybody the website one more time for the campaign.
Surely. It's Vickie, Vickie, for FOR, NYC.com.
Outstanding. Well, listen, I want to wish you Godspeed. I know that you are out there fighting the good fight on the culture wars. You're fighting the good fight in support of our men and women in law enforcement. You're fighting the good fight for every man, woman, child in your district. You're fighting for America, and I appreciate it. Godspeed to you.
Thank you, Rich. I'll see you soon, okay?
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. And if
Okay.
you've tweeted it
Thank
out,
you,
I'll
dear.
retweet it for you. God bless you.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night.
Bye-bye. And we're going to come right back with your thoughts, your phone calls, and everything else that's going on. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Familia, we continue the conversation, the national conversation with you all, the American people. The phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. I want to talk a little bit about this story about the Signal app, right? Signal is one of those messaging apps that is encrypted. And again, my initial read on this was that this was this guy lying, right? Mr. Goldberg. And I still think a good portion of what he says and does are a bunch of lies. However, he has some information, so apparently he was part of this group. Now the question becomes, how did he become a part of the group? Okay, I get it. I get it. And we have a little bit of audio from Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, assuming full responsibility for this. Listen to this.
It's embarrassing, yes. We're going to get to the bottom of it. I just talked to Elon on the way here. We've got the best technical minds looking at how this happened. But I can tell you for 100%, I don't know this guy. I know him by his horrible reputation, and he really is the bottom scum of journalists. And I know him in the sense that he hates the president, but I don't text him. He wasn't on my phone, and we're going to figure out how this happened.
So you don't know what staffer is responsible for this right now?
Well, look, a staffer wasn't responsible, and look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did the number?
I
mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
Have you ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked like someone else.
Again, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz saying, look, I take full responsibility for this. And all I can tell you from this is it a simple mistake? Seems like it is, yes. Is it something that we should just go, hey, look, that could happen to anybody. Forget about it. No, that's not going to happen. And it's not that I don't think it should happen. I know it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. When things like this happen, somebody gets fired. Who the somebody is, I don't know. I've seen situations where you can have like a commissioner level or cabinet level person make a statement. So, again, think of a cabinet level person making a statement. And obviously anything a cabinet level person says is a direct reflection on the chief executive, whether it's a governor or the president in this case. And I can tell you that somebody somewhere is going to lose their job. That's just how this works. That there are people there. Nobody's infallible. Understood. I make mistakes all the time. Everybody does. But when you're in a role like this with national security and whatnot, they know you might make a mistake. And that's why you have people that are there to have your back to help you not make those mistakes. So somebody somewhere is definitely going to lose their job. Now, whether it's them getting fired publicly, them getting reassigned, them falling on their sword, whatever it is, resigning, I don't know what it looks like yet. But you can take this one to the bank. I'm usually right with these things. Somebody's losing their job. I don't know who. Because I don't know the extent of this. Me personally, I don't like apps for that reason, because things like this can happen, right? And it's not the app's fault in this case. This is human error. But you have to use something that's a little bit, I'm going to say safer. You know, I don't know. Maybe it's the New Jersey bureaucrat in me. But we didn't do, everything was face-to-face. They made sure you never, ever put anything in writing, ever. I mean, it was hard to get anything in writing other than received. You know, the only time you wrote something was when you were complaining about something. And it was called a memo to file, so that it was literally in writing. So if there was discovery conducted on your computer, your work station, anything like that, this was public record. So, I mean, this is what I know about the New Jersey swamp. So I can only imagine how serious things are in the Washington swamp. But all that aside, and again, this is not to castigate or cast blame. I'm just saying, somebody's going to lose their job. I don't know who or when, but that's the prediction that I've got. Anyway, the New York Post editorial board seems to agree with me and says that the Trump team's going to pay a serious price. I don't think it's going to be a serious price either. I think that the Houthi operation went off without a hitch, and this wasn't something that was the end of the world. This didn't seem like the end of the world to me. I think had there been like, oh my gosh, here are the war plans, and then somebody gets it and they leak it and they do X, Y, and Z with it, and it ruins, diverts, or somehow changes the end goal of the plan, then yes, now you've got a problem, Houston. But that's not necessarily what happened here. So I wouldn't characterize this as the end, right? I don't think it's the end of anything. It might be the end of somebody's career, but that's probably the extent of it. This is not some serious thing. But I do want to get to your calls on this, and forgive me for meandering. So we're going to get to your calls momentarily. I'm going to take a pause right here. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, to the phones we go. Open phones across America. How serious is this signal situation? Is it a scandal like the media is saying? I don't know, but I want to get your thoughts. Let's go to Boise, Idaho, KBOI. Let's go to Paul. Go right ahead, quickly.
Thank you for taking my call, Rich. On a scale of 1 to 10, I think it's about maybe a 2.5 as far as importance is concerned. But what it is, it's a great learning experience for the rest of the administration, so that it doesn't happen again and the holes are plugged.
Yeah.
Whoever brought this guy into the meeting, he's your problema. You know what I'm saying?
Mike Waltz is saying that he's the guy, that he built the group himself, and that there was, he had this guy's number saved in his phone under someone else's name. And I could see how that happens, because that's similar has happened to me. I was just telling Count Delacula during the break. I had been contacting somebody that knew somebody. So just imagine, Paul, I was writing to somebody that knew you, and I was like, hey, blah, 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 thinking it was you. But since they knew you, they would respond in kind and never tell me they weren't you, because it didn't make sense to say, hey, I'm not Paul, because I never addressed you as Paul directly. The whole thing was crazy. But that happened to me. And now I was never coordinating national defense or anything like that. But ultimately, I could see how the number gets in there and saved under the wrong name. And that's why these things can be tricky. But Paul, thanks for your call, brother. I agree with you. 2 out of 10 sounds right to me. Amigos, we continue the conversation for most of America. And for some of you, hasta la próxima. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national. Here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And happy to be with you this evening. It's a blessing to be on this microphone with each and every one of you. And I'm hoping to hear from you when we do open phones across America. But first, I want to talk about what's going on. Of course, there's been a ton of foreign investment, domestic investment, bankers that are investing. All sorts of people are investing in the United States. And it brings several things to mind. But there was a clip of President Trump, and I might have played a portion or a different similar clip, but there's a lot going on. And it's kind of happening at breakneck speed. So I want to play the clip, and then we're going to talk about it. Check this out.
Today, we're delighted to report that Hyundai is announcing a major $5.8 billion investment in American manufacturing. In particular, Hyundai will be building a brand new steel plant in Louisiana, which will produce more than 2.7 million metric tons of steel a year, creating more than 1,400 jobs for American steelworkers, and then there'll be major expansion after that. This will be Hyundai's first ever steel mill in the United States, one of the largest companies in the world, by the way, supplying steel for its auto parts and auto plants in Alabama and Georgia, which will soon produce more than 1 million American-made cars every single year. The cars are coming into this country at levels never seen before. Get ready. This investment is a clear demonstration that tariffs very strongly work, and I hope other things also, but the tariffs are bringing them in at levels that have not been witnessed.
And that, again, President Trump announcing that Hyundai is going to build a new $5.8 billion steel plant in Louisiana. This is going to create nearly 1,500 new jobs, as he mentioned, and they're going to be making steel, right? Mining, creating, all of that. And what's I like about this, what I think is the big deal here is I just can't help, and I wish I would have thought ahead and pulled out the file tape. But do you guys remember a guy, he served as president, the 44th president of the United States. His name was Barack Obama. And he once made a very snide remark when Trump was running for president. He said, well, what's he going to do? Wave a magic wand and bring manufacturing back to the U.S.? Remember that? And I do remember that. And look at that. We've got a steel plant coming in here so that they can manufacture things like cars in Detroit, cars in Indiana. I think I love this. You got Hyundai, you've got Honda, you got Apple building stuff here. These are all great things. Why? It made all the sense in the world. Stop going overseas. It's not cheaper anymore. Everybody was, the BRICS is coming to eat your lunch. BRICS, the BRICS nations, the BRICS. What did he do with BRICS? He said, hey, BRICS people, you want to make an American dollar? Stop messing around trying to de-dollarize the world. They try to de-dollar everything. They're trying to de-dollar the sale of gas, this, that, trying to remove the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Well, guess what? El Trompito Donaldus Magnus said, how about a 150% tariff? You like that? You like the way that sounds? You'll never do business in the United States again. They were like, all right, look, hey, we don't really need BRICS. Thanks, guys. Isn't that nice? Then the other clown, his name is Rasul. He's a fool. He's the, special envoy for South Africa. Guess what? He got kicked out, right? He arrived safely back home in Pretoria, South Africa yesterday to greet his president after getting kicked out unceremoniously by El Trompito and Marco Rubio, Secretary of State and the President of the United States. That's what Trump is doing to BRICS. Kicking their tail. All it took was a little guts, a little gusto, a little ingenuity. Somebody who knows what they're doing and isn't afraid to do it. Now, people wonder, well, why is Trump? Listen, depends on how you want to slice it. But I believe Trump is popular. Why? Because I'm not getting the hate I normally get. You know, the kind of hate when the media freaks out and I play all these clips for you. I know those days, which days my phone is going to blow up. My Instagram is going to get messages. My Facebook is going to get messages. People are going to, and not people from Radio Land or TV Land. Not people that follow my work. No. People that I know that are like, man, I can't believe I went to high school with you and you like Trump. You're a disgrace. You're not really Puerto Rican anymore. You know, those people. And when they're silent, when they're like, yeah, I'm hoping Trump does that move with crypto and makes it into, you know, adding more stuff to the United States Bitcoin reserve because that actually might be good for me. I bought some crypto and blah, blah, blah. When they start telling me stuff like that, I go, oh, look at that. Wasn't going to happen with Biden, was it? Didn't happen with Obama, did it? So there's a lot of people I can see very clearly in my own community of, you know, Hispanics in New York metro area. They got a lot of love for Trump. Even if they don't say they got love for Trump, they got love for Trump. Democrats got love for Trump. Why? Because they do. And you know who else admitted it today? Harry Enton from CNN. He was jumping up and down as he was saying how great Trump's approval rating is, even though the media, and he explains how the media is slicing it to make it look like it's bad, saying, oh, he's not as popular as maybe Obama was at a certain point or as anybody else was, but he's way more popular than Trump was at a similar stage in his previous administration. And when you cut it up that way and you say, let me compare you to yourself, well, guess what? He does really well. And in reality, when you're a president, you're not really competing against the last guy unless you're cleaning up one of their messes. But in reality, you're competing against yourself. That's why when you go in for a performance appraisal at work, they look at your work performance, not the guy next to you. Check this out.
I think sometimes it's important to do a little bit of reality check and take a little different spin at the numbers. I'm going to do that right here because all we talk about is how unpopular Donald Trump is. But in reality, he's basically more popular than he was at any point in term number one and more popular than he was when he won election back in November of 2024. What are we talking about? His net favorable rating right now comes in at -4 points. Compare that to where he was when he won in November of 2024 when he was at -7 points, or March of 2017 when he was at -10 points. So when you compare Trump against himself, he's actually closer to the apex than he is to the bottom of the trough. And of course, that's so important because Donald Trump, historically speaking, has had his numbers underestimated. So I think it's very important to compare him to himself to understand he's actually more popular now than he was when he won, or certainly where he was at this point back in his first term. The bottom line is Trump is more towards the ceiling than he is towards the floor.
So when you do that, it makes my knees hurt. So when you look at this compared to sort of historically, what does it tell you about the percentage of folks that think the country itself, with him at the helm, is on the right track?
This, I think, is rather important because, again, if the polls have historically underestimated Donald Trump, what is a metric that might get at understanding at how popular he may actually be? So let's take a look at the percentage of the country who say that we're on the right track. It's actually a very high percentage when you compare it to some historical numbers. What are we talking about? According to Marist, 45% say that we're on the right track. That's the second highest that Marist has measured since 2009. How about NBC News? 44%. That's the highest since 2004. Wow. The bottom line is the percentage of Americans who say we're on the right track is through the roof. And if you were to compare it to when presidents have historically been reelected, of course, Trump is not constitutionally eligible to run for re-election, but I think it sort of puts it in perspective. 42% of the country says the country is on the right track when the incumbent party is re-elected. And also keep in mind, back when Kamala Harris lost and the Democrats were turned out of power, only about 27 to 28% of the country said the country is on the right track. The bottom line is right now, a much higher percentage of the country says we're on the right track. And finally, Sarah Seidner, I want to put it all in the congressional generic ballot.
What about Congress? No.
What about Congress? Because those are the folks who are up in 2026. And take a look here. The Dems versus the Republicans on the generic congressional ballot. Back in November of 2020, when Democrats won, it was +5 Democrats. Tied in November of 2022, +1 in November of 2024 when Republicans maintain control. And then you look at March of 2025. This number looks a lot more like 2022 or 2024 when Republicans won control of Congress. The bottom line is, yes, Donald Trump's approval rating is lower than compared to a lot of his predecessors, but it's higher when compared to himself. A lot of folks say the country's on the right track, and the generic congressional ballot looks a heck of a lot more like when Republicans win than when Democrats win.
It will be interesting to see if any of what just happened with these leaking of the text plays into it in a later poll. But this is very telling.
I thought that was great. She couldn't help herself but say, well, forget all the good numbers and how he compares to himself and how it's the second highest in 20 years. Forget about that. I want to talk about the leaking text, right? The Signal fiasco, which is not much of a fiasco. Anyway, I got to tell you, I thought this was great. And it was great to see the visual component of it because Harry Enton, who I don't believe is really a fan of Trump's. I don't believe he's anything other than just amazed all the time at how well Trump does. He was so enthusiastic when she said, oh, it hurts when you do that. It wasn't a snide remark. He was jumping up and down. and she was making reference to the impact on the knee. At least that's what I observed from that. So I thought that was really interesting. I've never seen, journalists or pollsters or analysts or whomever really take that much enthusiasm in such a positive way, right? Again, I don't think it was an endorsement of Trump. I think he was just really like, wow, can you believe how good Trump is doing, is really how I took it, as opposed to, the Chris Matthews type who get that chill up and down their leg because they get so excited. So that's a little bit different. But I thought that was really interesting. So we're going to talk about a lot this hour. We're going to get into a bunch of things, your calls, of course, and more. We've got former chairman of the commissioner of the Federal Election Commission coming up. He's with the Heritage Foundation now. Hans von Spakovsky will be joining us. We're going to talk about a number of things, including the legality of DOGE. And I got a clip of Elon Musk and what's going on with DOGE that I want you to hear. So keep it locked right here, folks. Rich Valdez coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
A clear case of fraud was with the Small Business Administration where they were handing out loans, $330 million worth of loans to people under the age of 11. I think the youngest, Kelly, was a 9-month-old who got a $100,000 loan. That's a very precocious baby you were talking about here.
Well, we're tackling the fraud, waste, and abuse in the agency. We've seen, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud go unprosecuted, so we're taking that on. We have a zero-tolerance policy for fraud, and we continue to crack down on it and make sure people are held accountable.
It's amazing. And you have a lot of that. We found far too much of it. It's a pure fraud. We like to use the words waste and abuse because they sort of sound good, but many of these things are pure fraud.
That, of course, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States and the 47th president. And he's in the Oval Office with Elon Musk, and they're discussing this crazy thing about these little kids, at least figurative little kids, right? People that are claiming to be whatever age, being the recipients of this funding. And I think this is just nuts. And, of course, the left within the media, their immediate response is, oh, well, where's the proof? I want to see the proof. You're making it up. This can't be. This is Social Security. Come on, it's infallible. I say the whole thing is fake, phony, and fraud, and I want to get to the bottom of it. That's why we've got the manager of the Election Law Reform Initiative and senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Hans von Spakovsky is with us, former commissioner at the FEC, and he's with us now. Hans, welcome back, sir.
Rich, thanks for having me back.
My pleasure. I always appreciate your brilliance, your expertise, and your insight on this stuff because you've been around it and you know what's going on. Now, there's a lot of injunctions and a lot of everything that's going on against DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. But I want to get your take on some of this stuff, and in particular, if you don't mind, your reaction to the audio that you just heard.
it's astonishing the amount of fraud, not just fraud, but the amount of ridiculous, bizarre, stupid projects that the DOGE has found coming from all these different federal agencies, all these loans, grants given out for ridiculous projects. And, I actually think that the lawsuits that have been filed about this, what really upsets the radical left so much is the transparency. The transparency that President Trump and DOGE is bringing to this. And that in itself, I think, is a good thing, as is canceling such a terrible waste of taxpayer funds.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, because that transparency, in my opinion, highlights a real, I'm going to say, a vast ineptitude that is going on within the swamp, which has historically been run by Democrats. And I think it makes them look stupid. It kind of exposes their lack of oversight, their lack of not knowing what's going on. And that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is it exposes how complicit they are in actually defrauding the American people, which is the worst case scenario. Either way, I think they're screwed.
Well, no, I think that's true. And look, when they send a grant to Peru to produce a transgender comic book, that's not ineptness. That's deliberate. That is an intentional misuse of taxpayer funds. And that's why they have filed so many lawsuits against DOGE. Now, despite what people may think reading the headlines, most of those lawsuits actually have not been successful. I mean, the most that they've gotten in some of these cases is judges saying, well, you can't have personally identifiable information. So in other words, they can't go to the Social Security Administration and say, well, I want the complete file on Joe Smith. But that doesn't prevent them from saying, well, we want to know how many individuals over the age of 120 are getting Social Security payment. That's the kind of thing that really will dig up the errors, omissions, and fraud that's going on in all of these different federal agencies.
Wow. Well, I'm going to keep digging into this with Hans von Spakovsky. He is our guest, and he knows what's going on. He's the manager of the Election Law Reform Initiative and senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. And, Hans, this is, I think, the best I've seen it, and you may have been around longer than me, but from looking back, I don't remember a time when we've been able to shine a light on how badly government is run. Can you?
No, I don't think I don't think we've had it. Now, you and I both remember.
You know what? Let's let this play out, because they're going to kick us off. The music means they're kicking us out. Folks, we're going to come right back with the aforementioned Hans von Spakovsky, and we're going to pick up right where he left off with he and I remembering that time. So don't go anywhere, folks. You don't want to miss this. Rich Valdez, Hans von Spakovsky, and we're coming right back.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation with Hans von Spakovsky from the Heritage Foundation. And Hans, we left off before the music so rudely interrupted a great story you're about to tell us about you remembering a time when we. Go right ahead.
Yeah, well, look, in the 1970s, Wisconsin Senator William Proxmire became famous because he started giving out what he called the Golden Fleece Awards. And they were awards that he jokingly gave to government officials for wasting taxpayer funds on ridiculous projects. And the difference between what Proxmire did and what's going on today is, look, this was a great list he came up with, but nothing got done about it. And what we have today is a president and cabinet officials who aren't just complaining about it, they are doing something about it. Each one of President Trump's cabinet secretaries has come out with a list of all of the wasteful spending that they have canceled, grants, loans from all these different agencies, saying that we have canceled these, or we are trying to claw back money that has already been paid out. That's the difference. They're actually doing something about
it. And that's a first, in my opinion. And I think that's great. And the Golden Fleece Award, that's fantastic. We should bring that back. Hopefully somebody in the White House is listening. Bring it back, the Golden Fleece. Hans, I want you to hear a little bit of some of the critics of DOGE and the administration and their efforts to highlight efficiency within our government. One of them being United States Senator Elizabeth Warren. Check this out.
Now, no one elected Elon Musk to nothing.
That's right.
Not one Democrat in America voted for Elon Musk.
Not one.
Not one Republican in America voted for Elon Musk.
Yep.
Not one independent in America voted for Elon Musk. Not one libertarian in America voted for Elon Musk. Damn, not one vegetarian in America voted for Elon Musk. And yet, Elon Musk is seizing the power that belongs to the American people. We are here to fight back.
Oh, boy. Well, the shrill of her voice, she's fighting back. Hans von Spakovsky, what do you make? Is this the left falling apart because they don't have an argument? I mean, isn't the entirety of the executive branch, but for the vice president, unelected?
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the most ridiculous arguments I have heard. We have an executive branch, an executive government that's got, the last estimate I saw was about 3 million civilian employees. That's not counting the 1.3 million military folks. With the exception of the president and vice president, not a single one of those individuals is elected. So her claims about that are just stupid. On the other hand, almost 80 million people voted to elect Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And a president is allowed to rely on anyone he wants for advice. When she says that Elon Musk has seized executive power, wrong. What he has been doing is giving recommendations to the president based on his investigations and what he has found. It is the president, the elected president, who's been exercising the executive authority and telling different agencies, different cabinet secretaries to take action. All of that is completely and perfectly legal. In fact, Rich, look, if the president wanted to rely on you and me to give him advice, he has an absolute right to do that. So Elizabeth Warren's claims are just stupid.
Yeah, and I remember this because I did a little deep dive into this. I don't know, it was 2018 or so, when then sitting President Trump decided to call his good friend Rudy Giuliani to represent him as an attorney in a personal matter, but used him in an advisory capacity, and people were freaking out. And I looked into it as best I could, talked to all of the scholarly people I knew that were really well versed on the Constitution, and they all said, come on, George Washington had a ton of special advisors. That's just how this thing works. And I thought, man, if it's been happening since the days of George Washington, why are they still, getting their panties in a bunch?
Well, it's because of what they're exposing. And by the way, DOGE is the modern equivalent of a committee that Dwight Eisenhower formed when he got elected in 1952. Part of his platform was running on what he considered to be wasteful spending by the government. After he got elected, he put together a committee, and who did he appoint to it? His brother. And also, he thought a successful businessman who knows how how businesses are well run would be a good idea too. So he put basically the Elon Musk equivalent of the time on it, Nelson Rockefeller. Again, no one at the time thought there's anything unconstitutional, unlawful about that, because it was Eisenhower simply relying on their suggestions and their recommendations, and he was the one then taking action in the executive branch. This is just that committee that Dwight Eisenhower formed on steroids.
Outstanding. Now, Hans von Spakovsky, I want you to tell us a little bit about, before we wrap, about some of the work that you're doing at Heritage and what people can expect to be coming down the pipe from you and how they can keep up to speed with everything you're doing.
Sure. We're working on all of these issues, including, by the way, the most important issue that's around right now, the theme that runs through all of these lawsuits filed against the president, which is, does the president run the executive branch? Or can Congress try to, and the judiciary try to limit his authority, for example, to hire and fire people? The Constitution says he's the CEO. He has the ability to do that. But that's one of the most important issues. They can go and find my work at heritage.org or at the Daily Signal, which is our electronic newspaper.
Hans, I appreciate it. Thanks for clarifying all this stuff. Because, you know, that last one that you mentioned, this stuff about the judges getting involved, I think people misunderstand when you say something like that. And they go, well, you're not allowed to challenge things. He's not a dictator. He's not a king. He's not. No, sure, sue away. But I don't think you get to call the shots as a judge, right? You can interpret the law. You don't get to call the shots. I think this is such a big distinction. And it's amazing how the media will just go with any story that benefits them.
Yep, no, I agree with that.
Well, I appreciate it. We'll have you back real soon to continue to shed light on things. You can do it like very few others can. Hans von Spakovsky, manager of the Election Law Reform Initiative and senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. I appreciate it, sir. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot.
Thanks for having me. Good night.
You bet. Good night. And amigos, your thoughts, calls, and reactions to what's going on anything under the sun, especially what we've been talking about, coming up straight ahead, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, so we're talking about frauds, and I couldn't help but think about a fraud that we saw a while back. Remember, these guys, they beat me up, these two white guys, they had MAGA hats on, they put a noose on me, they poured bleach on me. Turned out to be fake and phony and fraud. That was Jussie Smollett, right? Well, guess what? Somebody is following in his footsteps. There's a woman accused of planting a noose on her own desk at the City Hall in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Listen to the police captain break down exactly what happened here.
On January 10, 2025, at approximately 7:11 a.m., Allentown City employee LaTarsha Brown arrived at her office on the third floor of City Hall. At approximately 7:38 a.m., Ms. Brown notified the Allentown Police Department that she discovered what she believed to be a noose on her desk upon arriving at work. Officers assigned to the Community Outreach Unit, Crime Scene Identification Unit, and Criminal Investigations Unit responded. initiating a criminal investigation to identify the individual responsible for placing the noose on Ms. Brown's desk. During the investigation, video surveillance and building access control records were reviewed to identify city employees present on the third floor of City Hall between the time Ms. Brown left for work on the afternoon of January 9, 2025, and her arrival on the morning of January 10th. Those employees were interviewed. Each was asked if they would provide a buccal swab for DNA testing if needed. Every employee agreed, except for Ms. Brown. Initially cooperative, Ms. Brown later requested that the investigation be discontinued.
Well, look at that. Ms. Brown. Again, this is a woman that is she's being accused of planting a noose on her own desk in the City Hall of Allentown, Pennsylvania. This city employee, LaTarsha Brown, told police she found what she thought was a rope noose on the desk of her third-floor office. The police conducted an investigation obtaining DNA from video evidence of seeing who entered and who left the building. And the only person that didn't submit DNA was her. Oh, interesting. So now she's being charged in connection with the noose investigation. And after 2 months of her outrage and claims of racism, police have concluded that she planted the noose herself. Sound like Jussie Smollett to me. Anyway, this happened back in January, and it was just released yesterday that this information was what in fact happened. Video surveillance and building access control records revealed that 9 employees were present between the time that Brown left work the day before and her arrival the next morning. Every employee except Brown agreed to provide a swab of their a cheek swab of their DNA, and she didn't want to do it. So you heard the report from Captain Milkovich, and I think this is just extraordinary. It goes to supporting Trump's line about fake news, right? Somebody does this, then they go right to the media. Then the media perpetrates this and puts it out there. Just like when the deportations started, right? There were a bunch of people. Oh, and there was a Puerto Rican man who was a veteran, and he was taken into custody. They were about to deport him. There was another story, right? Oh, the Puerto Rican family that was speaking in Spanish in the mall, and the ICE people just walked right over to them. Oh, yeah? Is that where we keep our ICE people? Is Tom Homan just hanging out at the local mall? Unbelievable how stupid they think you and me are. But believe it or not, there's some idiots out there that believe that stuff. I didn't believe that. I didn't believe the Jussie Smollett, and I definitely don't believe this. Except for the fact that she did it herself. Of course she did it herself. Who's doing that? Who on earth says, let me put a noose on your desk at work in City Hall, a place where you know there's cameras? Right? This is just as silly as yesterday when they said that Pete Hegseth was leaking things on Signal. No. Leaking things? No. This guy's the Secretary of Defense. He's not leaking anything. Did something accidentally get leaked? That's a whole different story. But leaking things? Come on. This is a play on words. This is the left trying to make it look like something that it isn't. And this is the same thing. This is the left trying to make it look like something that it isn't. It seems like this is what they do. They do it time and again, and they can't get enough of it. Anyway, I want to get your reactions to this. What do you think? Am I being too rough here? Is this not a fake, phony fraud? The cops say it is. Is this Jussie Smollett 2.0? Should we expect more of this? Or do you think now that these people keep getting called out for their nonsense, we're going to see less of it? I want to hear your thoughts on this and everything else. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
Let's be clear. Mahmoud's rights are our rights. In the United States of America, no matter your immigration status, no matter, again, who you are, you have constitutional rights in our country. The detention and threatened deportation of Mahmoud is illegal and is a direct assault on our constitutional rights to due process, freedom of speech, a right to protest, and on dissent itself. Dissent is a fundamental American value. This is a moment that should alarm all of us. If we do not stand up and fight for Mahmoud's freedom today, the lawless Trump administration will come for us all. All of our rights are under attack at this moment.
That is Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, and she says that Mahmoud, what's his name? His last name? Khalil. That Mahmoud Khalil's rights are your rights. They're my rights. And this is the same as the people that came out and said, I am Ukraine. I stand with Ukraine, right? Listen, I really do stand with Ukraine. It was my country, despite maybe against my will, that agreed to the Budapest Memorandum of Security Assurances and said, hey, give up your nukes and we will protect you. So I do support our involvement here. I think so does President Trump. That's why he's trying to broker this deal. And he made some big headway today after what's going on in Saudi Arabia. But going back to this, it's true that green card holders are entitled to due process rights, but it's not the same. And this is the biggest bone of contention I have with what she's saying is she's not being honest, right? You have to be honest. This man is not being held in custody because he is dissenting. In so much as we could say Hitler's biggest crime is that he dissented with popular opinion that we shouldn't kill, gas, and burn Jews. No, that was not Hitler's biggest crime. It was not his dissent to break tradition with the 10 Commandments and kill people. It was the fact that he killed people. It's two different worlds here, right? So it's not the fact that this guy was critical of America, critical of Israel, and saying kind things about Hamas. No. It was that he was literally providing support for a terrorist organization by disrupting the goings-on of American college campuses, up to and including organizing a quote-unquote protest that was a siege of a campus where someone was held hostage. He was the ringleader of that. This is lost on people. Why? I don't know. Maybe because, Morningside Heights campus is right there. It's not far from where I live. Maybe that's why. But let me tell you, that's not cool. When you take over a college campus and somebody's trying to get out and they're afraid for their life and they're being held hostage and somebody gets in trouble for holding that person hostage, this is no longer dissent, right? You can't tell the judge, well, I dissent with the law. I disagree. You can say you disagree with the kidnapping charge, right? And the fact that you're holding somebody hostage. And that's not what they're charging Khalil with. He just organized this whole vile thing. Now, I understand the defense part. I get it. They're saying, look, he was just organizing a protest, a very peaceful one, while the other guy was the one that was holding the guy hostage. One has nothing to do with the other. I'd say they absolutely have something to do with the other, and so does the United States government, and that's why they're holding this one person, this singular person, in custody. So, not so fast, Congresswoman. Anyway, amigos, we continue our conversation. For some of you, this is the end of the road. For the rest of us, we will continue open phones across America, more discussion, the 5th year of the COVID anniversary here in New York City, and so much more. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another amazing edition of our program. Amazing, why? Because you're here, and I'm happy to be here with you as well. It's a blessing for me. The phone number is 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ. It's about 7 minutes past 11 p.m. New York time, East Coast time. And we are live and national, so I'm looking forward to getting to your thoughts and opinions and comments. But before we do, big story of the day. If you ask the folks in the left-wing media, there is an absolute scandal. Pete Hegseth was trying to send out war plans, right? That's yesterday's story. They're still at it today, saying that he intentionally leaked this stuff. I said, look, there's no way that Pete Hegseth was doing this stuff. Now, today we find out, well, I guess there was an error, and Mike Waltz steps up and says, yeah, it was my bad. I had the wrong number saved here. I guess he'd had some communication with this Goldberg character, had his number saved the wrong way, and mistakes happen. Got it. Understood. Doesn't mean we look the other way. As I mentioned previously, someone will lose their job over this. I don't know who the someone is. Don't know whether they'll resign, quit, or be fired. But I do know someone's going to lose their job over this. You're not allowed to make that level of mistake without somebody paying the price somewhere. It's my belief. I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Now, El Trompito weighed in on this while pummeling this guy from the Atlantic. Listen to this.
We had a very, very successful evening, and we've had numerous successful evenings and days in that area. The Houthis are absolutely on the run. The worst of them has been killed. This should have been done a long time ago by Biden, but Biden was an incompetent president. He couldn't do anything. He didn't know where he was going. He had no clue. This guy had no clue. This should have been done a long time ago. As they shoot missiles at ships, randomly shoot missiles at ships, and they make their own missiles. You know, this is not an incompetent group of people. They make their own missiles. They get the missiles also from Iran. It's an offshoot of Iran, another offshoot. You have Hamas, you have Hezbollah, you have the Houthis. You got a lot of stuff going on with Iran. And we sent a letter to Iran. You're going to have to be speaking to us one way or the other pretty soon, because we can't let this happen. But that's an app that a lot of people use. And somebody got on. I mean, happened to know the guy's a total sleazebag. The Atlantic is a failed magazine. Does very, very poorly. Nobody gives a damn about it. This gives it a little bit of a shot. And I will tell you this, that they've made up more stories. And they're just a failing magazine. The public understands that. He's a very good man. That man is a very good man right there that you criticize so strongly. He's a very good man, and he will continue to do a good job. In addition to him, we had very good people in that meeting, and those people have done a very, very effective job, and you're going to see it. And it goes on, by the way. It's going to go on. And I think the Houthis wish that it didn't happen, but that's what it's all about. We have to create a safe country, a safe world, and that's what we're doing.
That again, President Trump going in, supporting Mike Waltz, who's taking full responsibility, saying, look, this was me. I did this. The buck stops with me. Doing what a real man's supposed to do. Now, it doesn't mean that it was intentional. It doesn't mean that this was done to harm anyone, but it does mean it can't happen again, and somebody will pay the price. I can pretty much guarantee it. I can't pretty much guarantee it. I feel very strongly that that's likely going to be the case. And we may not find out about it publicly, right? Publicly, he just gave you what he said. That man is a good man. So I don't know if maybe one of his advisors, one of the people that's there to make sure that, you know, if he drops something, that they pick it up, wasn't there. Somebody somewhere is going to have hell to pay for this, because it shouldn't happen, right? That's the reality. It shouldn't happen. And I'm not blaming Mike Waltz for this per se. I'm just saying you need the level of support that you need. Somebody's got to be there looking out for you for the things that you can't see or didn't see, because you're literally the national security advisor. So I believe someone's going to pay the price here. Don't know who, don't know when, but I do know it likely will. Now, El Trompito, staying on this geopolitical front here, he also, through Marco Rubio, has gotten part of a deal in place with Russia regarding Ukraine. Listen to this report.
The Kremlin says Russia confirms that Moscow has agreed to ensure safe navigation in the Black Sea. And we're also getting comments coming out of Ukraine. President Zelensky says Ukraine's understanding is that this agreed ceasefire is effective immediately following the announcement. He says the agreement does not specify actions if Russia breaks the ceasefire. Ukraine will appeal to the US directly if that happens in such a case. And if so, he says he will ask Trump for weapons if Moscow breaks the ceasefire.
So there you go. Now they actually have a framework in place where there's agreement, right? Unlike the other one where they said, hey, we agree that we'll have a meeting to agree. And of course, Putin went and blew up an energy station. My belief is that you can only trust either of these guys as far as you can throw them. But I believe Trump has a very, very good understanding of what's going on, and he's gonna manage it the best way he can. I think he's doing a good job. Now, I want to talk about COVID, right? I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. 5 years ago, I was hosting a local radio show on a New York radio station. I hosted a weekend radio show on a New York radio station. I also had a show on the weekends in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and things are going good. My podcast did well. I was really enjoying life. I still am. But then COVID came. And then this guy who I called Essential Andy Cuomo. Essential Andy Cuomo was the governor of New York who deemed who got to be an essential worker and who didn't. And he was the arbiter of essential versus non-essential, that decided in his infinite lack of wisdom, we should put COVID-infected individuals commingled with elderly patients in nursing homes. As you would imagine, the COVID spread like wildfire, and many people lost their lives. Now, Cuomo has never, ever even apologized for this, let alone say, oh, that was a mistake, it was my bad. But that's where we are. And I got a story I want to tell you. I told it a little bit earlier, but I'll tell it again when we come back. And I want to get your thoughts on this as well. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Today we are announcing a mandatory statewide requirement that no business can have more than 50% of their workforce report to work outside of their home. No more than 50% of the workforce can report for work outside of the home. That is a mandatory requirement. I'm going to do that by executive order, and that is statewide.
This is the man. This is the man with his executive orders, his edicts, and all of his, again, in his infinite lack of wisdom that made so many bad decisions. Essential Andy Cuomo, the governor of New York. He's saying you can't show up to work. Half of you got to stay home. But you know who gets to show up? all of the essential workers, they all showed up, right? They were the nurses, the doctors, the folks that work in the nursing home. And so they wouldn't be lonely. He made sure that he sent COVID-infected people by way of executive order into nursing homes. That's right, where your abuela, where your abuelo, your grandma, your grandpa, where they're staying, where they're supposed to be in care, protected, so that they're okay. They were put directly in harm's way by an executive order by Governor Andrew Cuomo. And this came to my attention by way of a physician, Dr. Elaine Heely. Now, I've shared this story before, but just to give it to you briefly. I worked in radio. I was a radio host, and I was a radio producer, working with the great one, Mark Levin, a.k.a. Mr. Call Screener, Richie V. And I was doing that work when it was nighttime. It was probably 7, 8 o'clock at night, something like that, when this very, very affable woman calls in and says, hey, look, I'm a doctor. I'm the executive director at a nursing home. I heard from my professional association, the association that manages executive directors of nursing homes, that we have to follow this thing, this edict, this executive order that's come in. And this is detrimental to the health of so many people that are in our care. And she wanted to blow the whistle on this thing, and she is, in effect, the COVID whistleblower 5 years ago, blowing the lid off of this stuff. And she's here with us now. Dr. Elaine Heely, welcome.
Thank you, Rich. It's good to talk to you again.
Likewise, good to hear your voice. And,
Thank
you know, 5 years ago, we met by phone and when this happened, because you had the courage to blow the whistle on this and really, you know, put yourself in harm's way, in my opinion, because others in your profession could not come out against this. They would have been blackballed. They would have been whatever. What made it different for you?
Well, I was so stunned by this directive, and it came across my email probably in midday, March 25th, 2020, and it was from Cuomo, Howard Zucker, his commissioner of health, and it was stunning. It said that nursing homes had to comply with admitting COVID-infected patients from the hospitals into the facilities. And at that time, Rich, we were trying to do everything possible to keep COVID out of the nursing homes because we knew very well how fatal COVID could be in that setting. Because the very first outbreak of COVID in the United States occurred in a nursing home in Washington State. And we already knew that the mortality was terrible. So when this directive came across, I was frantic. And I first sent it to the executive director of the organization, the National Organization of Nursing Home Medical Directors, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And he was stunned. He called an immediate meeting of the board of directors, the physician board of directors of that organization, and they issued a statement saying, this is insane. It's dangerous. It's going to cause harm to our nursing home residents. We are categorically against it. And that was the first thing. And then the next day, I called into the Mark Levin show, and you put me through, and Mark couldn't believe it either. Mm-hmm. So that was it. I was just desperate. I was desperate to get the word out, and thank God you took the call.
Well, thank God you made the call. And let's talk about what happened after that, because as much as we were sounding the alarm and trying to help people, thousands and thousands of people died.
Yeah. So what happened is, basically, after this is just how I see it. Of course, what happened at the nursing home level was that we had to, and we were basically strong-armed into setting up COVID units in the nursing home. So we had to move patients around, clear out spaces in a designated wing of a unit or something like that, and basically have these patients come in and try to keep them separate from the other residents at the home. So this was a huge effort on the part of the nursing home staff. And we were really very much overlooked in the whole management, you know, from the healthcare system with the PPE and certainly with tests, which we never got. That's another story. But, you know, it was very, very, very difficult. And then in came all these patients. And one thing I want to say, people frequently mistake what actually happened. People think it was only returning patients. In other words, patients that we had sent out already. Right. These were new patients that we had never seen before. Brand new sick people that we had never seen before. And Cuomo and the Department of Health, they knew exactly how many open beds there were in every nursing home, because we had to report on that every day. So they knew that such and such nursing home had 5 open beds. So they would just, you know, say, we expect you to take 5 patients from, you know, your local hospital, whatever that place was. So we had no choice, because the Department of Health surveys and licenses the nursing homes. So you just have
They're in control.
You know, comply. And that's what it said. The directive said nursing homes must comply. And when you hear that coming from the Department of Health, there's no discussion. There's no choice, really. So we did the very best we could. It was terrible, but I will say that after that call to you, and there was an article in the Wall Street Journal buried. I had spoken to a reporter, and it was a, you know, very small article. Other than that, you never heard about it until almost a month later, when the families of the nursing homes residents, either that were sick or, you know, they were locked away from them, or that had died, they started organizing protests. And then the press picked up on it, and you and Mark replayed that call. I don't know if you remember this, but you replayed it in April. And that's when all of a sudden people started asking questions of Cuomo at the press conferences. So you can you know, almost date it like the first question came to him: what's going on in the nursing homes? What's in, you know? And then he's been on the defense ever since, really. But there was that gap, and during that gap is when all those people came in, and it was just it was awful. It was
really
awful.
Was. It was a massacre. Folks, we're on with Dr. Elaine Heely, COVID whistleblower, and she ran a nursing home in New York, saw this thing coming, tried to sound the alarm as best she could, yet it still happened. And but for, you know, your work, who knows how bad it could have gotten even after that, right? Like you said, we pushed this as much as we could, but it was really you taking the lead on this. And I have a clip of some of the family members of the people you were just talking about, the people that were kind of thrust upon you that lost their loved ones. And I want to get your reaction from it. So if you could stick around, I'd appreciate it. Dr. Elaine Heely, thank you. She's coming right back with us. COVID whistleblower, medical doctor, runs a nursing home, and a real hero in my eyes. We're coming right back. I'm Rich Valdez.
You have experience and skills in interviewing, or you wouldn't be on your program.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
My name is Alexa Rivera. This is my sister, Vivian Zayas. I am the co-founder of Voices for Seniors. Better yet now, the Voices of the Forgotten. I stand before you today not just as a grieving daughter, but as the voice for thousands of families who lost their loved ones due to the reckless and deadly decisions of Andrew Cuomo. My sister and I started this advocacy group searching for answers, never realizing that the very governor our mother voted for was the one who facilitated her death. For 5 years, we have fought for accountability and justice, and now Cuomo wants a second chance. He wants to be the mayor of New York City, but we cannot allow that to happen. My mother's name is Ana Martinez. She was a strong, kind woman who dedicated her life to her family. She deserved dignity and protection and a government that valued her life. Instead, she was abandoned by the very system that was supposed to protect her. When the pandemic struck, Andrew Cuomo issued a directive that forced COVID-positive patients into nursing homes, exposing the most vulnerable to a deadly virus. The results were catastrophic. Thousands of elderly New Yorkers, including my mother, lost their lives. And when the families like mine demanded answers, he covered up the true numbers, lied to the public, and chose political survival over accountability. Let's be clear, this was not just an accident. It was a failure of leadership, a betrayal of trust, and an avoidable tragedy. Cuomo's March 2020 order required nursing homes to accept COVID-positive patients despite the warnings from health experts. Over 15,000 elderly residents died as a result of his reckless decision. His administration deliberately unreported deaths, hiding the truth from families and the public. When questioned, he deflected, bullied, and dismissed our grief, showing zero remorse for the devastation he caused. And now this man, the same man who failed us, who put profits and politics over human lives, who refused to take responsibility, wants to run the city of New York.
That's it right there. This March 2020 order was catastrophic. It pales in comparison to don't go to work, you can't go to work, you can't do this, we're shutting this down, we're doing that, we're closing the economy, all of that craziness. This idea that, hey, if these people have empty beds, let's put sick people in there. This way we'll take care of them faster. These people aren't buying it. These people all have dead bodies attached to them. Family members, loved ones, their parents, their grandparents. And Dr. Elaine Heely tried to stop it. She sounded the alarm when this was an idea that came out on paper. It said, hey, tomorrow this thing takes effect. And she jumped on the phone and said, I don't know what to do, but I need to stop this thing. And she was unsuccessful in stopping it, but she was very successful in putting the news out there. And she's still with us. Dr. Elaine Heely, when you hear the two sisters that started Voices for Seniors and you hear their story, what's your reaction to that?
Well, I have to tell you, it hurts. It hurts. I was there, Rich, at the rally that they had in Brooklyn just the other day, these families. And these were the same families, I think, many of them that organized the original protests.
Yes.
That actually, finally brought this matter to the attention. And this event was so moving, and what was so remarkable about it, I mean, these people are still suffering. They never got closure from their grief. What happened to them was just, you can't imagine, like your parent just got snatched away, or you couldn't get in to see them, you couldn't be with them, they didn't have funerals. Rich, these people were weeping. They were grief-stricken still. And as I listened to it, I realized I started feeling, it brought me back to what had happened. And it was just very, very sad that they're still suffering over what happened. And it's a grief that's not going away. I feel so sorry for them. And another thing that I realized, and I think I'll say this if you don't mind, because
Sure.
I've been wondering why it's affecting me so much. And then I realized that I have my own grief, and not so much that this would be about me, but the grief of the people that worked in the nursing homes those years has never been acknowledged. And it was the people that worked in nursing homes just saw all these people die. It was unlike anything that had ever happened before. Even in the hospitals, I mean, they came and they died quickly, but the people in the nursing homes knew some of the people that died or that got it from the others that came in. They knew them for years, and they were terribly affected by this. as well. And I'd never realized that until the other day. Like, why was this bothering me so much, with these people and their terrible sorrow? So there's just, this was really, really just one of those experiences that I don't know how it gets dealt with, but the families are very brave getting up there and trying to get through this, and they're demanding answers. And they want to know. They had that the memo, blown up there and posted in front of the podium, and they were demanding the reporters ask these questions, and they're very knowledgeable about this memo now. I mean, they're all over it. So,
well, I'm going to say, I think you're 100% right on a few things there, but I think they're the most knowledgeable, not so much on the memo, although they are, but who knows better than the person who lost their parent to this because of a stupid executive order that a stupid governor made. I think that these are the foremost experts. We should have them testifying in Congress. They should have city council testimony. They should make sure every New Yorker hears this, and every American, to make sure something like this never, ever happens again, and that Cuomo doesn't get the opportunity to run the city. And
God help us.
Oh, yeah.
God
and just
help
to your point, I want to say, it's interesting, the words you said, they struck me as incredibly honest and vulnerable in that you're a physician, right? You're a trained doctor, and you ran a nursing home. And I'm going to venture to say old people die in nursing homes. It's a pretty regular occurrence and a regular part of your job. And I think that's why you felt kind of weird that, you've seen this before. You've seen it many times. You're kind of almost immune to it, sad to say. But when you saw it in this number and this magnitude, and not because of old age and not because of illness per se, but because of negligence and what some critics of Cuomo's have dubbed a mass kill-off.
Oh.
This is, that would weigh on anyone, Doc.
Well, you're right. I never heard that expression. That's a whole different dimension. But you're right. I mean, we do something like a 20 or 30% of all deaths in America occur in nursing homes. We are very aware of that. In most cases, we know that it's coming. We recognize someone is, approaching their demise, and we do sort of a hospice and palliative care approach. For the most part, 80% of the time, we anticipate that someone's going to die, and we have those things in place, and the families are aware, and we do, what we can to make it as peaceful as possible. And then the other 20%, die suddenly, and that's different too. But yes, it's quite a normal occurrence, so to speak. But this was unlike. I mean, we were just slammed, with this devastation, and we still haven't recovered. I think that's a story that needs to be told. I mean, this isn't about me. It's the nursing homes and what happened to them and to this staff, as well as the families of the people that died. There's like two sets of victims, and that just occurred to me the other day when I was there. So there's a lot more to this and a lot more to be told.
Really well put. Dr. Elaine Heely is our guest. She's a COVID whistleblower. And Doc, I don't know what you're up to these days. I don't know if you're still in the business or whatnot, but if there's anything that you'd like to, direct our listeners to check out a blog, a website, or follow you on social media or anything like that, feel free. If not, you can maintain your anonymity. They have your name, though.
No, that's okay. I don't have to be anonymous anymore. That was, and by the way, so your listeners know, I requested not to be identified because we were afraid that that he would send the DOH into our nursing home and shut us down. And that's, we have not only the nursing home, we have other lines of service, and that we were very frightened of that, and it would have been irresponsible. As much as I, wanted to keep going with letting people know what was going on, it would have been irresponsible to all of our residents and employees and staff to have this place subject to his fury. So that was very serious. But time has passed, and we just have to keep telling this story. And he can't become mayor. It would just be a disaster for New York. I hope people understand this wasn't a one-off either. This was part of a pattern, a series of mistakes and poor judgment and everything he did, writing a book and his Emmy awards and yucking it up with his brother on CNN. I mean, this is there's something wrong with this guy. I mean, this wasn't just one, he made a mistake. I've made enough of them, but this is just he's like a sociopath.
Yeah, there was really just a complete lack of empathy and remorse, almost either an unwillingness to be accountable or an inability to even acknowledge that there was wrongdoing here. Or a mistake even. And it's remarkable, but you're right. And, what's funny is I think a lot of people only know the sound bites of Cuomo that they saw, and he was hailed as fantastic. He was hailed as the best thing ever. At one point, I remember hearing an audio clip of him saying, do you think that we would place sick people in with our most cherished and most vulnerable population in a nursing home? That would be like setting a match to dry grass. His quote. I heard that. I had to turn it off. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dr. Elaine Heely, we've got to wrap it up here. That's all the time I've got for tonight, but I want to thank you for being here. You are a gentlewoman, a scholar, a patriot, and a hero. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Rich.
God bless you. Talk soon. Amigos, we're coming right back. Your thoughts, calls, and reactions straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, we continue. And Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was on Instagram yesterday talking a lot of smack about a lot of things, from the signal stuff to Governor Greg Abbott from Texas, where she hails from. And I want you to hear what she had to say about the good old governor. Check this out.
We in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey. So yes.
Now, Crockett has since made some statements. I'm not exactly sure what the statement was, but I know she had to make a statement because I think she got beat up for that. When she says we've got Governor Hot Wheels here, she's talking about Governor Greg Abbott, who is confined to a wheelchair. And come on. And the crowd laughed, so apparently they thought it was funny. And, maybe I might have thought it was funny too, because, I probably would have thought that's more funny if that was a reference he referred to himself as, then I'd be like, oh, he's got a good sense of humor. And if that were the case, then if someone else were to call him Governor Hot Wheels, and maybe that is the case, but it seemed very uncouth. It seemed like it wasn't the right thing to do, but this is what she specializes in, right? She specializes in making these types of uncouth statements, just like the rest of her friends in the squad, which is dwindling, right? They've lost Representative Cori Bush, who, by the way, her husband recently was indicted for some sort of malfeasance. But they also lost Jamal Bowman, right, who was not indicted but was arrested for pulling a fire alarm to interrupt the vote count on a congressional vote. Yep. Remember that? And he said, oh, no, I thought that was the exit. He thought the fire alarm was the exit. I mean, this guy's a real champ. Well, he lost his seat as well. And I think we're going to continue to see that. I think there's a trend. Somebody who I think is somewhat safe is AOC, unless a formidable challenger that has the ability to raise a lot of money comes in. But the area she represents is filled with transplants. You're talking about commies from all over the country that go to that district just to, to serve alongside the queen of the commies, AOC, all out crazy, my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens. But not too far behind her is Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who was at a hearing today also, adding that the amendment to reorganize the government, this is a whole a bill that she's proposing, that she says this is because the Trump administration is one of the whitest on record. Listen to this.
Look, I don't want us to lose sight of what is actually happening here. Let's not revise what's happening. The Trump cabinet is on track to be one of the whitest cabinets in modern history. And when the government is given unchecked authority, civil rights are often the first to be sacrificed. Without this amendment, nothing in this bill stops an administration from using its reorganization powers to weaken the enforcement of civil rights and anti-discrimination protections.
So that's Representative Ayanna Pressley at the hearing today, and basically making the case that these guys are a bunch of racists, right? Now, you thought that was an old, tired statement from back in the day, but apparently it's not going anywhere. They will continue to say that this is racist, this, that, and the other, Governor Hot Wheels, and everything else they can do. But notice what they don't say. I love America. Notice what they don't say. We stand for this country. Notice what they don't say. We stand for the people. Never. They never, ever, ever stand up for we the people or for the United States. It's time for the squad to go. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, Rich Valdez, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be with you live and national. And I want to take a moment to, of course, thank you guys. I get, messages on social media and whatnot through the inbox. And people always tell me, hey, look, I really enjoyed the segment you did on this or on that. And I want to thank you for it. And how can I listen to the podcast? Well, of course, you go to richvaldez.com. That's Rich Valdez with an S.com. And you can listen to all of our old programs, as well as the podcast. And you can subscribe to the podcast, which I encourage everyone to do. That way you get notified when new episodes come out. But on top of that, I want to thank everybody for leaving the 5-star reviews that you've left and your thoughts and comments. It means the world to me. And thanks for listening to the other podcast, This is America with Rich Valdez. Anyway, take care. Good night. God bless you, America. Hasta la próxima. I'm Rich Valdez.